Welcome to the Evolution Show. I'm Johan Landgren. I hope you're great. If you're new to the show, I'm a full-time investor and writer in sustainable tech. And here on the Evolution Show, I invite pioneering leaders and companies to talk about renewable energy, smart transport solutions, and sustainable living. And I can't think of anything more cool and inspiring than today's guest that has built what many have said could not be done. How about a large modern house that runs completely off-grid, using only solar power and hydrogen storage, in a cold country like Sweden? The house has been operating off-grid for almost 8 years, and it's drawing a lot of attention in Sweden as well as internationally. Join me for a fully loaded episode with the amazing engineer and entrepreneur Hans-Olof Nilsson. You definitely don't want to miss this conversation. But before we get going, if you like the episode and you want to support the show, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. As always, stay ahead of the curve and stay electric. This is the Evolution Show. Welcome to the Evolution Show, Hans-Olof Nilsson.
Thank you. Will be of interest.
Yeah, you are a true pioneer in your field, and I've been really looking forward to this conversation. Some people even call you Mr. Hydrogen. And we will soon find out why. Because you have built an extremely unique house, and it runs on solar energy combined with hydrogen, and it's completely off-grid. And it has attracted a lot of attention, both here in Sweden, but also internationally. So if we start with you, can you tell us about your background and what led you to build this really inspiring solar and hydrogen house?
Okay, yes. My background, or let's say my education, is in the electrical field. I'm an electrical engineer. And the reason for building this house, that was, we got the opportunity for about 10 years ago to build a new house. And then I told myself or my wife, now we're going to build that house that everyone is talking about, but no one is doing. And also saying it's not possible. And then regarding energy from the sun. So my interest is, of course, energy has always been. And soon or almost immediately I saw that, shall this work in Sweden for 4 to 5 months, from, let's say, October to March, when we have the winter season, I need to, in some way, to store energy from the summer to the winter season. And to use batteries for that was not the solution, because of quite some about, I need to store about 6,000 kilowatt hours. And to do that in batteries would just kill the project, wouldn't be feasible for me regarding cost of batteries and also size. I mean, the size the batteries takes. So that was to then see how can it be done. And that was, of course, to use hydrogen. And that was new for me 10 years ago. And when I started 2012, and I had to learn a lot, to read about it, there was a lot of articles and some laboratory experiments, etc. But again, what I needed was in reality. So that was to find suppliers or components, and that was also took half a year or more, because very few, only one is in Sweden, all the others are outside Sweden. So finally, when I found all the components, I thought I need to take some help from consultants to how can this be done. Consultants are very skilled in their profession, and it's individual profession, and I needed more or less 5 or 6 different skills, and consultants as such cannot work together. I mean, I needed a system where all these different skills is interfaces with each other, and that was the thing that I had to actually learn myself and do myself. So yeah, eventually the house was put together, all the technique was installed, and in March 15, the grid was disconnected, because then the sun started to appear with power enough to charge batteries and start to produce hydrogen. I mentioned batteries. I do have batteries for the short term for each night, one example. And when there are power peaks in the house from kitchen hardware and so on, or charging the electric vehicle, I need power, and that's what batteries can deliver. No?
Yeah, we'll come back to that. It's fantastic. First of all, I have to say, I mean, you were really early with the electric car. You had a Tesla Roadster back in 2009, I think.
We got that one in September.
Yeah.
The first one. It came 2 Roadsters at that time in September. One for me and one for a customer up in Linköping, I think it was.
Yeah. So you must be one of the absolute first here in Sweden, and actually in the world. Very few in the world had a Tesla Roadster at that time.
Or in 2009 September, that was quite unusual, yeah. But that was an interesting time, I would say.
Yeah.
Today, battery cars or electric cars, you see them everywhere. So nothing. Yeah, it's just mainstream today.
Yeah, so just for people to know, I mean, you've been early in several ways, not only with this. So I think it came natural for you to try new things and things like that. So,
someone must do it, and it's nice to be to do it. Yeah, it's interest who is the driver. I mean, spending time and so on other things.
Yeah. I think I think in very similar ways, Hans. I think if you have the opportunity to do something and you're curious, I think you should do it to show others that you can and inspire others. And
I fully agree that if the resources are there, do it then. Why not?
Yeah. And when I prepared this conversation, I came to the conclusion that the energy solutions that you and your company, Nilsson Energy, has developed, it is not only it's not only pioneering, but it could become a game changer for housing, as well as commercial buildings and energy storage in general, in ways I don't think most people have realized. Could you share some of the companies that have visited your house and that are interested in this kind of solar and hydrogen solutions? We will soon talk about the specific house, but just for people to get an idea about where you are now and where we're going with this.
Yeah, the interest has been really huge, to say so. From we came off grid in spring 2015. That, of course, I never publish anything on Facebook or any of these medias, but people got aware of this and showed a huge interest in this and asked, can we come have a visit, etc. Yes, I said yes, you're welcome, and that just increased a lot. So up to February 2020, the visitors passed 6,500. So more than 6,500 people visit the house in a bit more than 4 years. It's a huge interest, and some of them also became customers to a system like that. They asked me when I was as a private person, can you build that for us? And then I said yes, I can. And okay, then I want to buy a system from you. And by getting such a question and that opportunity, the company Nilsson Energy was started up.
Yeah, and so okay, but if we start with this amazing house, we have to talk about it. And it's a 500 square meter house, and it has a huge solar power system on the south-facing roof, and also solar thermal system for heating. And you also have panels on the southern and eastern facing walls, some
west,
at least.
West.
West, sorry, west. So yeah, south and west, yes. So can you, if we start with the outside of the building, can you tell us about the solar and thermal system?
Yeah, on the roof facing south, it's fully covered by PV panels and also the solar panels. Solar panels is used for heating water. That was still quite common in 2012, but today it's very seldom used. But I did it because I wanted to integrate all available energy systems at that time, like solar heat, and photovoltaic, also PV panels. So the roof is fully covered, and the facade or sidewall, outer sidewall facing south, do have panels integrated in the wall. Also the west side integrated, so they have two functions. They are a PV panel and then also a cover, or what we should. Yeah, so in total, it's not that much. It's 20 kilowatt installed capacity on the roof and 3 kilowatt installed in the two facades.
And the solar thermal also is what, 13?
Solar thermal is, it's more, you have to say, it's 20 square meters.
20 square meters, wow.
And they produce, have done since it was installed, in an average of 6,000 kilowatt hours of heat.
That's, yeah. Okay, so let's move on to talk about the heart of the house, the interior, the energy system, I would say, as you clearly stated. Yeah. So we talked with the solar panels, so perhaps we could just talk a little bit, start with the inverters and the battery system. If you like, you could start there and guide us. Yeah, I can take a step-by-step explanation.
So, I mean, PV panels on the roof. So I have two inverter systems and two battery systems. So it's doubled up. So in normal cases, both systems are delivering energy to the house. But if one system, why I did it in two systems was that if one system fails, the other one will most probably operate. We are not doing that today, two systems, because components and systems are very, very reliable. So it's, but for me, I did it just because no one should tell me, what did I say? It won't work. You have problems with the system, but no. So that is inverters, solar inverters, battery chargers is there, and also it's a bidirectional inverter, so it can both charge the battery and discharge the battery during, say, nighttime or high power peaks. When so that is inverter, bidirectional inverters, charging and discharging batteries. So that is what operating every day. And then when solar energy not is enough, normally, or then during the summer, a lot of hydrogen has been produced. So when solar does not deliver, like a day today, where I'm here at 1 o'clock today, the daylight and the battery state of charge was down to minimum. Then the fuel cell starts up and charge the batteries, because all energy goes over the battery banks. The batteries are always in the picture. Yeah. So
And the batteries, just for people to understand, you choose to build a very big battery pack, and you had a reason for that. And so perhaps you could just explain the size and why you build this system.
Yes, the battery. I mean, sometimes I do get the question, what has failed, or what have you noticed what could be better? And that is the batteries. When it was new installed, I used lead acid batteries. The reason for that was cost. Lead acid was much, much lower cost than lithium batteries for 10 years ago. So that it was an easy choice, but I wasn't, maybe not too well, I didn't understand that, or I was not told that LED batteries can just handle a certain number of discharge and charge cycles. Charging daytime, discharge nighttime. And LED batteries do have about 1800 charging cycles, and after that they are done. Not that they will fall apart, but they don't store energy. They cannot accumulate energy when they are charged. So they were, and that lead acid battery I installed, the total capacity was 144 kilowatt hours. A lot.
That's a lot, yes.
Quite a lot, yeah. Huge battery, you know. It was, the house consumes in average about 25 kilowatt hours per full day. Which meant that with 144, the house could be active in about 4 to 5 days, no? On batteries only. So that was quite a big battery, but that was used for powering the house, of course, but also, again, charging the vehicle. I've been driving electric vehicles for a long time, and when you are home in the afternoon or night, the sun don't help a lot. So then you need to have energy in your house, especially me that don't have any grid. I must have energy in the house to charge the vehicle for next morning or so. So that was huge. I also used some of the battery to operate, to drive the electrolyzer, the unit that splits water into hydrogen and oxygen.
Yeah. And maybe we can just continue with that, if you like. You can just explain what is how does this electrolyzer and also fuel cell work together with the hydrogen tank.
Yeah, I can. Again, to be able to be self-sufficient during winter season, I need to store energy, and a very efficient way to do that, or let's say a way to do it that could be done inside a house. Anyone can do it. That is to use normal tap water. It's a unit, very basic, simply explained. You have a container or a bottle filled with water, and in that water you put 2 electrodes. And the electrode could be by an iron nail, it could be copper, or it could be anything if you have precious metal like platina. Yeah, but again, you have a container with water, 2 electrodes in them, and when you connect plus and minus DC voltage to them, and you look into the container, you can see it starts to bubble around the electrodes, and around one, the bubbles consist of oxygen that is released to the outside, and around the other electrode you have the hydrogen, and that's where the energy is stored into the hydrogen. So the hydrogen is then collected and moved, piped to a compressor, and the compressor then compressed it. When it's stored in a pressure vessel, you need to build up the pressure to get as much as possible inside the vessel. So electrolyzer is water split into oxygen and hydrogen. Hydrogen is then moved by the compressor to a hydrogen storage container.
Yeah, and that container is outside the building. It's not with the rest of the equipment.
All equipment is inside the house, excluding the hydrogen storage, and that is just a safety issue. If there should be a leak of some kind, it do leak outside the house, and again, hydrogen is, all energy gases must be handled after their
carefully, or with safety.
Right. Yes, and to store it outside makes it takes a lot of risks away then. Yeah, so it's stored outside, all the storage, but everything else is inside the house. So again, this process to split drinking water or tap water is fully automatic. Nothing I have to decide every day. The system handles that itself.
Yeah.
So when there is excess...
Yeah, and so during the winter, what you have done is basically you produce generate a lot of electricity during the summertime and spring maybe from your roof, and then you store some of it, maybe half of it or something like that for the winter. Or how much do you generate? Yeah.
A normal year here, I do have excess solar energy, and that is about 15,000 kilowatt hours of solar is not used during the summer, and that is then stored into hydrogen. And it means that if it's a year with no problems and normal operation, I do store up to around 200, it varies between 250 and 270 kilos of hydrogen. 250 to 270 kilos. So all that 15,000 kilowatt hours of electricity is converted to hydrogen.
And in kilowatt hours, how much is that? So people understand how much energy you have stored.
About around 8 to 9,000 kilowatt hours is stored. So 15,000 is then, due to efficiency and all that, it will be about 8 to 9,000 kilowatt hours in the storage as hydrogen. And yes, correct. And so that's
I mean, of course, there is a conversion loss when you make this hydrogen, but you are also making use some of it for heat, so it's not lost completely. You have some of it in heat as well, and that goes into your water tanks. Yeah, heating system. Yes. Yeah.
Correct. Of the to explain that, of the 15,000 kilowatt hours of excess solar that is converted, that process creates about 20% of the 15,000 will be heat. So that heat is used by the house, so it's not a waste. It's used, very welcome. I mean, even though summer, do you need heat then? Yes, I do. You have warm water, for example. During summer, and so there's no difference summer or winter. And then also, it's quite common today that in your bathroom and toilets you have tiles on the floor. And that normally feels cold, even though it's the same temperature as a wooden floor. When you walk on it, it's cold. Yeah.
And with that, you can run the everything in the house. It's a normal house. You told me you have you have 2 electric cars, even 1 or 2. You have 2 electric cars.
We did have 2. Now we have 1. But even with 2, let's say so. We are driving. The car now is running about 1,500 miles or 15,000 kilometers per year. When we had 2 cars, it was twice that amount. So, but that, we can charge them as well from our own energy, from our solar energy, stored solar energy.
So just to move on a little bit, you also, for people to understand, just to get the complete picture, you also have a regular heat pump, which is very common here in Sweden. I will also have one in my house that I'm designing to complement the system. It's all about efficiency. You put in 1 unit and you get about 3 maybe out, so it's still very efficient. And so people might wonder, why do you have a hydrogen or a heat pump? But I guess that's just simply to, you can explain.
I need a heat pump also. And the thing is that during summertime, I have heat enough from the solar panels and from the electrolyzer. So it creates both heat and warm water. That's fine. But then when we are shifting from say summer down to winter, when what happens in October, November, December or so, October, November, then I have no production of hydrogen, no heat from that process, and the fuel cell hasn't started to work 100% or so. So there is that leap between when we are shifting from summer to winter. There are a number of weeks where no heat is produced from the hydrogen system, and then I need to run the compressor to create heat. Actually, So and the compressor or the heat pump creates heat. Then, let's say from November, around let's say November, then it must be active a couple of hours per day. And then when we are into December, when the fuel cell starts to produce electricity, it also produces heat, and quite a lot of heat. I mean, 50%, if I need 2 kilowatts of electricity, the fuel cell also delivers 2 kilowatt of thermal heat.
Yeah. And just, sorry.
Yeah, and then, so when the fuel cell is active, I do have heat again. But again, my fuel cell, the fuel cell does not run 24/7. I mean, it runs to charge the batteries and then it switches off. And then if there is a need for heat, when the fuel cell has stopped, then the heat pump kicks in.
Just I want to mention that you have 3 1,000-liter water tanks or for the heating system, and as I understand why you have such a big ones is partly because you want to be able to heat the yard outside the building, and in Sweden people understand this. I mean, we have a lot of snow. I'm even more north from you, so I have more snow than you. So you can just explain briefly how these heat tanks work.
The heat tanks is for warm water, and that is just for melting ice and snow on the outside of the house, like in front of the door, entrance, the garage doors, or also the runway into the house. So that's what it's used. So because the energy is there, I mean, I collect it from the summer, and why not use it then for things that makes life easier?
Yes,
it's fun. It's great fun.
I mention it also because people might think about this must be very expensive. You have so much redundancy in this system, but people must have in mind that when you designed it from the beginning, you were trying things out, and you wanted to be very safe, very sure that you had everything in place in case of some failures, or but then of course the obvious question for people is, what kind of maintenance or maybe issues have you had during these almost 8 years now that you have been off grid?
Yeah, the biggest thing was to replace the batteries. The lead batteries that just last for about 5 years, 6 years, and that is the way lead batteries are. That's actually characteristics of lead batteries. But if you take that away, the batteries, because today we don't use lead, we are using lithium in all installations we are doing. In addition to that, the only maintenance so far is there are air filters. The fuel cell sucks in air, and that is like an engine on a car. You have an air filter there to clean the air that goes through the filter, but that's just a maintenance thing. And then the water, I said the electrolyzer is using drinking water or tap water. That's correct, but the water needs to be
deionized. I think,
ionized, deionized, and that filter has been replaced 2 times.
And that's, I think in Swedish crowns, it was a couple of thousand crowns per time to
1,800 crowns every 3 years.
So for Americans, that's maybe $150 or $200 or something like that.
very little cost. So that is actually, that is the only maintenance cost that has been. There are, of course, like the hydrogen detectors, you know, who are sniffing for potential leaks and so on. They need to be tested, of course. That is not a cost you don't replace. So far, the sniffers I'm using do not need to have any components replaced. They just need to be controlled, that the sensitivity is there, that they react on different levels.
And is that something you have to look yourself, or do you have help with that to check?
In my case, I do it myself, because you can from the supplier of these sensors, they have these calibration gas, like in a small spray container. You just spray some of that gas onto them, and they should then react. If they don't, they are out of calibration. And then, of course, depending on some sensors are easy to calibrate yourself, because they do have a display. If they don't have that, you need to connect the PC, and then you need some software and so on to do that. So maybe it's better to have, call it a professional doing it, because he then writes a report to me, the sensor is calibrated, it's operational. So just in case, you know, if things...
But do you think, how often do you have to check that? Is that in a couple of years intervals, or
1 year?
One time a year. Okay, okay, but you've talked a lot about, you share a lot of things from your house, but something that people, of course, want to know, they think maybe this is fantastic and everything, but how about costs? You built it 8 years ago, and of course, many components have gone down in price. Some have even gone up a little bit lately, at least because of the inflation. When I think about the batteries, the lithium batteries, but over the years, from 8 years to now, they have obviously gone down a lot.
Yes. So, but everything, yes, as you said, costs have gone down. Batteries are cheaper. Lithium are lower cost today than it was 2012. Electrolysers have dropped in price, the one that produce hydrogen. Compressor, no difference. It's a mature industry. They have everything fine-tuned, so they produce, and you don't see any drop in prices there. The fuel cell, yes, they are going down in price as well, because they start to be more common in vehicles and other applications. So batteries or PV panels, for sure, they have been dropped in price. Batteries, lower cost, electrolyzer, fuel cell. And what's not dropping in price, that the compressor and the storage. You know, the pressure vessels for storing the hydrogen. That is also, as I say, a mature business or industry, and everything is fine-tuned there. So they are on top level of performance and efficiency. But again, yes, it has dropped. You mean, let's say, so the system I have, from top of the, I mean, PV panels all the way down to all the equipment in the basement and the storage. That was in 2012, and it all was installed between 12 to 14. It cost me then about 2.5 million Swedish crowns.
So $250,000, we could say, something like that. Yes.
Like today, yes, And if the same thing would be done today, it's below the 2 million Swedish crowns. It is. And if they, as we do it today, I mean, I did more than needed. For example, the batteries don't need to be that big. No, in capacity, batteries, even though they're lower cost, still they do cost. So if you fine-tune the system, and you don't need to have twin solar systems, like you just need one, and battery size according to your need, what the house needs for the night, and how much you normally need to recharge your vehicle. So yes, you can come below the 2, and also if there is an, call it small, the expensive part, the most expensive component of this 2.5 million or 2 million is still the storage.
Yeah, it's the hydrogen storage.
Yes. Hydrogen storage, correct. So
yeah,
it's very essential that when a house, let's say if a new house is built, that put some extra effort into the insulation of the house. I mean, it's a low cost compared with building a bigger hydrogen storage, for example. Yeah. So it's low energy consumption of the house construction, and so that means that if you can drop, I mean, the storage I have is about 11.5 cubic meters water volume, or maybe it doesn't say so much, but there are 203 cylinders, 203 pressure vessels in there, and they are, I mean, I bought them from China at that time, but they are 3,500 Swedish crowns per cylinder.
Oh, yeah. And we can come back to a little bit in the next episode to talk about that, because you are working, I think, about to improve, to lower the cost for the hydrogen storage. So, but finally, Hans, this was a fantastic, I learned a lot, and I hope people understand that this is fantastic and it has a huge potential, this kind of solution that you already have today, and obviously it has been working very well for you and your family. And we can also, tell people that the costs are coming down, so they don't have to think that, oh, they really would like to have something like this, but it's too much, it costs too much for them. But I think just in the next couple of years, we will see the cost go down, even for this kind of system. How much we'll see, but I think it gives some promise for the future, that this is. Even for today, for people that want to build it, it's possible. And also, I think if you look at the long term, I mean, if you do this investment, let's say 1.5 million crowns, Swedish crowns, or $150,000, something like that. I mean, if you look to live in this house for maybe 30 years, and we look at, as I see the future, the energy cost is not coming down. On the opposite, I think we're reaching a new level that is. It's not the top, I think it's more the bottom, or the new average maybe. And so the cost will most likely go up here in Europe, and I expect it to go up in many other regions as well. So the payback time for a system like this might be much shorter than people think. Because you don't have any electricity bills at all.
No, that is one thing, and then you have the redundancy. I mean, you are self-sufficient. You're not depending on too many external resources. And
exactly.
Again, when you're saying 1.5 million, that in some cases it's that people is paying that for a high-level electric vehicle. I mean, easily.
Good point. Yes.
If they can afford that, they could afford an energy system to their house as well. Huh?
Yes.
That saves money every day, but it's not just money. It is that you always have energy in your house. That So, I mean, it's what to call it, redundant, but also it's a secure system. Huh? You are
Yes. Your energy. I mean, you're energy independent, and that's I think a very. I mean, for me personally, and I think for more and more people with what's happening in the world right now, it feels good both for yourself and for the environment, but also for your wallet in the long term. You can feel, you know that you have the energy you need. So what? But thank you so much, Hans-Olof Nilsson. This was fantastic to get a little bit of guide from your house, and I hope people are inspired. And in the next episode, we'll continue to talk about what your company Nilsson Energy is doing, because you're working on a number of very inspiring projects for other, not only households, but also for companies. So thank you, Hans.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. That was all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. Tell me what you think about Hans-Olof Nilsson's off-grid house in the comments below. And be sure to stick around next week when Hans-Olof is back to share what he and his company, Nilsson Energy, is doing to commercialize off-grid solutions with solar power and hydrogen storage, with installations for everything from preschools to large companies and private customers and farmers. I think this is something that has the potential to completely change the energy market. And as always, before you go, if you like to support the show, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I hope to see you next week.